Hello everyone. Today I will start your second chapter, that is biological classification. Now before I start, I would like to ask you, what is classification? What is classification? Now you will say, sir, classification means dividing organisms based on several features. You categorize or divide organisms based on several features, that is classify organisms. Classify organisms. Now, why do you do that? If I ask you, why do you classify organisms? You will say, sir, we classify organisms. See, this I have taught in the previous classes. Okay. Now you will say, sir, we do classification because it makes it easy for us to study organisms. Okay. It becomes easier or simple to study organisms. It makes the study of organism easy or simple. Okay. Now there are so many organisms. Because there are so many organisms, we need a process, an easy process to identify that organism. So that is why we use classification. Understood? Now biological classification. Now what is biological classification? If I say you, biological classification means to classify organisms that are living. Okay. Now if I say that classify organisms that are non-living, suppose in your study room or in the room in which you are staying, you might be classifying the things that are in your room based on different features, such as you must be classifying books, that is, these are physics book, suppose physics books, then there are chemistry books, then there are biology books. So you must be classifying books based on subjects. Understood? Now you must be classifying books and you must be classifying other things from your books. Suppose you must be having various clothes in your room, so you must be having a shelf or an almirah where you might be having your various clothes. Okay. So this is how you classify things based on need. Similarly, when the classification started in the early times, the classification was done mainly based on needs. So how classification started? So people started classifying things based on need. People in early times classify things based on, or organisms based on needs. Classified organisms based on needs. Okay. Like you have classified books and clothes based on need, so similarly they classified things based on need. Okay. Understood? Now if I tell you to what was the things that was done based on needs, what are the classifications? So they classified things based on, or the organisms based on food, shelter, okay, clothing, you can say clothing, the leather was used for clothing, the food, the animals, you can classify based on their needs of feeding habits, like you can classify plants and animals based on eating the vegetarian food and the non-vegetarian food. So things were classified, the organisms were classified based only on needs. But was that enough? If I classify things based on needs, can you study them in a simpler way? No, because things will get mixed. One thing might be used for food and the same thing might be used for shelter, and the same thing might be used for clothing. Okay. Suppose the meat of an organism can be used for food, and the same organism leather can be used for, or the skin can be used as leather products. Okay, so that it can be used for clothing in the early times. So there was a lot of confusion. So what was done is, to remove that confusion, there was a need for scientific basis of classification. So the first scientific basis of classification was done by Aristotle. Write down Aristotle. Okay, he did the first scientific basis of classification, or he started the scientific basis of classification. Scientific basis of classification. Now you will say, sir, what is the scientific basis of classification? Means there must be something or some features that might be used to identify that organism scientifically. So what were these features? First, he divided plants and animals. Okay, and animals. Now there were about 500 animals, organisms that he classified. About 500. Okay, about 500 animals that he classified. Now in case of plants, he classified plants into 3 types: herbs, shrubs, and trees. Now what are the differences between these 3 things? This was done mainly based on morphological features. Okay, you understand what is morphological features? Morphological. Now what are morphological features? Morphological features means those features in which you classify the organism based on the external characters, what you see from outside. So in herbs, shrubs, trees, you must be seeing something from outside. That is why you classify them based on morphological features. Okay, so herbs, the morphological features was the height. These are smaller in size. Shrubs are comparatively longer than herbs, smaller, longer, or taller. And these are the trees are the tallest. Okay, so the height differences made them easier to understand that this is a herb, this is a shrub, and this is a tree. Now let me give you an example. Suppose grass. The size of grass is so small. The size of shrubs, in which you see rows, okay, these are taller than the grass. And in tree you see, suppose mango tree. Now if I ask you what is the scientific name of mango, in the earlier classes we have done that. It is Mangifera indica. Okay, I hope you remember. Now in case of grass, you see the stem. The stem is not well developed, it is green in color. Or in case of herbs, this is the common feature of herbs, the stem is not hard, it is soft or tender. So the features of the stem, tender, green. In herbs, this is the feature, but in shrubs, what you will see is that the stem is well developed, better than the herbs. Okay, stem is further developed. Okay, but in trees you will see woody structure. Okay, so these are the features how you can classify herbs, shrubs, and trees. Okay, now in a case of animals, what he did is he classified animals into 2 parts, that is enhyma and anemia. Okay, means having red blood cells and having no red blood. Okay, having red blood and not having red blood. These are called enhyma and anemia. Okay, don't need to remember that. That is not important for your exam. Okay. Now the organisms that is mainly red bloods are in today's world we call them vertebrates. What are these vertebrates? We will see the humans. We have, what is the color of our blood? Humans, it is red. Then color of bird blood is also red. Fish also red. Color of fish also, blood also red. Not having red blood, these are mainly invertebrates, that is insects. Okay. If you see them, they do not have red blood. Okay. Now he further classified organisms based on number of legs. These are not important for your exam, just remember them. Okay, number of legs. Now humans we have how many pairs of legs? One pair of legs, that is 2 legs. Humans have 2 legs. Birds, he classified birds having as 2 legs. Okay. If you see fish, he classified it as having no legs, that is without legs. Understood up to here? Now this classification, was it enough? No, this was not enough. Though this was done only on scientific basis, based on morphological features, that are external features what you are seeing. This was done, and it was very simple, that it could not classify a lot of organisms. Okay. So then the next classification was done by Linnaeus. He also classified organisms into 2 types, animals and plants, that is Plantae and Animalia. And you know, in the earlier classes we have already discussed, he gave the biological nomenclature. Okay, Carolus Linnaeus. We have studied that in earlier classes, how biological nomenclature is done. So after Linnaeus, though he did the same thing, that he classified only based on scientific basis, that is Plantae and Animalia. So these classifications were not enough, as these classification could not classify organisms that were eukaryotes and prokaryotes, or the organisms that were multicellular and unicellular or multicellular. Okay. So there was lot of confusion. So this type of classification, so the drawbacks of this type of classification, write down. The drawbacks was that there were several drawbacks, but the main drawbacks were could not classify unicellular and multicellular organisms, and they could not classify you say eukaryotes and prokaryotes. And there were other major drawbacks. Okay, you should remember them. Now the next is to overcome these drawbacks. Another classification was done later on, and this classification is known as the 5 kingdom classification. This was done by R.H. Whitaker. 5 kingdom classification, that was done by R.H. Whitaker. Okay. I will ask, sir, what is this 5 kingdom classification? The organisms were in this type of classification mainly divided into how many types? 5 types. What are these 5 types? These are Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae and Animalia. See, in the earlier classification you have seen that there was presence of Plantae and Animalia. In case of Aristotle and Linnaeus, but these three were added later on. So if you classify into 5 kingdoms, it becomes simpler to classify various organisms like eukaryotes and prokaryotes, or unicellular and multicellular organisms. Okay, so let's start and find the differences between these all 5 kingdoms. The number 1 is cell type. These were mainly eukaryotes. These were mainly prokaryotes. The Protista, fungi, plantae and animalia were eukaryotes. So similarly these are eukaryotes. Okay. Now what is prokaryote and eukaryote? In prokaryote and eukaryote, the difference is that the eukaryote have the nucleus, that is, and the membrane bound organelles, that is, the nucleus and the membrane bound organelles are present, but in prokaryotes these things are lacking, they don't have that. Okay, this is the major difference between eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Now in Monera, the bacteria are the major examples. Okay. In Protista you will find dinoflagellates, okay, and slime molds and protozoa. Okay, I am writing that: protozoa, dinoflagellates, slime molds, etc. In fungi you will see mushroom, aspergillus. These are the different types of fungi. In plants you will see plants, and in animalia you will see animals. Okay, after the cell type you will say the cell wall. The plants you have already studied in earlier classes have cell wall present. Okay, present, and it is cellulosic. But in animals the cell walls are absent. Do we have cell wall? The answer is no. In fungi the cell wall is present, and it is made of chitin. In eukaryotes, Protista, that is, you will see the presence of cell wall in some, and in others it is absent, present in some. Then in Monera, or in the bacteria, you will see the presence of cell wall. But it is non-cellulosic. Okay. Then the next is feeding habits. Now the feeding habits is how the animal eats. Okay, the type of eating or the features adopted by the organism to feed. The organisms are, plants are autotrophic. Okay, plants are autotrophic. Animals are heterotrophic. Autotrophic means they can produce their own food by photosynthesis. Whereas heterotrophic organisms cannot produce their own food. In case of Monera, Protista and fungi, you will see, in case of Monera, you will see autotrophic plus heterotrophic nutrition. Okay, means they have both the features, the autotrophic and heterotrophic. Autotrophic nutrition means that they can produce their own food by photosynthesis. Heterotrophic, now in case of autotrophic, there are two types of autotrophic in Monera, that is photosynthetic and chemosynthetic. Chemosynthetic means they used chemicals or chemical energy to convert inorganic to organic matter. In case of photosynthetic, they produce energy from the by the use of sunlight. The chemical energy, the light energy and the chemical energy, you will see that the light energy is converted to chemical energy in case of photosynthetic autotrophic monadas. Okay. Now what are photosynthetic autotrophic monadas? Give example. It is cyanobacteria. Okay. Cyanobacteria. And in case of chemosynthetic autotrophic, you will see the nitrogen fixing bacteria. Nitrogen fixing bacteria. Then there is eukaryotes or the protista. You will see these are mainly parasitic in nature, heterotrophic and parasitic. Heterotrophic and parasitic. Whereas fungi is also heterotrophic and parasitic. Now heterotrophic means they cannot produce their own food. So what type of heterotrophic are fungi? They are saprophytic. Saprophytic means they will produce some chemicals on the dead and dissolved matter of organisms, and they will consume the nutrition from that organism. Okay, suppose this is a fungus, it will grow on dead and decaying organism, it will produce some chemicals, it will dissolve the this place and it will intake the nutrition. Okay, that is how saprophytic nutrition works. And parasitic is they will depend on the host organisms. Okay, parasitic, they will depend on the host organism and they cannot produce their own food. Parasitic, suppose in case of animals it is Aspergillus, they depend on humans to sustain. Okay, in case of protista you will see heterotrophic nutrition, that is they cannot produce their own food, and parasitic is they will depend on the organism. Heterotrophic, suppose in case of amoeba you will see the amoeba will go near the food, suppose this is the food, that will go there near the food and it will grab that food inside it and dissolve that food. So this is heterotrophic. In parasitic they are mainly depend on the host and they complete their life cycle inside the host. They are dependent on the host to complete their life cycle. Suppose you will see in case of protozoa, that is various protozoans. Suppose give me an example, Plasmodium. Okay, now let me ask you a question. Choose the correct statement. Number 1, number A, plant nutrition is autotrophic. Number 2, plant do not have cell wall. Number 3, monadas have cellulosic cell wall. Number 4, Aristotle gave 5 kingdom classification. Which of these following is correct? Plant nutrition is autotrophic. This is correct. Plants do not have cell wall. This is wrong. Plants have cell wall. Monera have cellulosic cell wall. This is also wrong. Monera have non-cellulosic cell wall. Aristotle gave 5 kingdom classification. No, it was given by R.H. Whitaker. So this is all for your class, today's class. Next class we will discuss the upcoming topics. Okay. Thank you everyone.